Hey everybody, it's Leroy from Leroy Gaming, and in today's Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader video, I'm going to give you 10 more essential tips for beginners for this massive game. If you guys haven't already checked out my first tips video, make sure to check it out. I'll have a link pop up in the upper right hand corner, as a lot of people have been finding those tips helpful. But I've been getting so many more tips that I thought would be helpful for you that I got 10 more. Plus, as before, make sure to stick around. I have a special bonus tip at the very end that you do not want to miss, as if you miss this tip, your game later on may be a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So as always, guys, remember, if you find these tips helpful, make sure to drop a like. If you want to see more RPG content from me, make sure to subscribe. And as always, if you want to help me get this out to more people, drop a comment. The algorithm loves that. Plus, of course, if you have any questions, I will make sure to check those out and do my best to answer them for you. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at my tips for Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader Part 2. Alright guys, tip number 1 is something that will make sure that you don't make the same mistake I made in 2 different playthroughs in a row. And that is actually missing an entire colony. So you'll notice that early on in the game, you're going to get to go to an area called Trinitos. And when you go there, let me show you what happens. There is going to be a very specific colony where you're going to have a special interaction during, and it is called Foulstone. Now, in this game, you're going to have lots of kind of interactions or like little storyboards, and you're going to make some choices. And depending on what choices you make, there's going to be different results. Now notice here, this is Monastery of the Order of the Hammer. Well, long story short, if you make the choices that will get you the item, it's going to basically be this two-handed offensive weapon. You'll get that hammer, but what I did not know is you will miss out on having Foulstone as a full colony. Yes, you heard me right. Here are the main 4 colonies in the game, but there is a 5th one, Foulstone. So be very careful. Make sure you make the choices carefully, and whatever you do, don't make the choice that's gonna just get you the items from it, because then you will miss out on the colony and you will not be able to get it back. There is no way around it. I'm hoping in a future patch they'll edit it so it warns you about this. All right, tip number 2 is all about how to optimize your sniper, which is likely going to be your DPS carry for most of the game. Now, whether it's your custom character or if you're going to pick the special companion that we have here that is a natural sniper, there's a couple things you want to know. Number 1, to optimize them, you're going to want to make sure that you double down on 2 sniper rifles, and preferably something like this Eye of Hecaton last weapon. 2 big things. You want something obviously with high damage, armor penetration, dodge reduction, additional hit chance, and very importantly, you want to have a good max ammo. This is max ammo 10. And on this older save I'm using for this video right here, I have this other weapon here that only has 4. That's not optimal. You really want 10. And also, optimally, the best sniper rifles, in my opinion, they're gonna require these Eldritch types of weapons. Now you can, on a custom character, you can get the feats to get these type of weapons, so you don't necessarily need this companion. But first of all, step 1 is you want 2 of these with that tech, because it's gonna be superior. And the main reason you want this is you want as many pieces of ammo as possible, because what you're gonna want to do is you want to double up on Finest Hour. And Finest Hour is the heroic ability of the officers. And what it does is when you use those, you're going to basically get a full extra turn, and you're going to have unlimited amounts of attacks, and you can upgrade it so that if you kill something, you get an extra action point. And what ends up happening is you're going to be able to one shot, one kill most enemies, or two shot, one kill, and you're going to be able to get 10 or more shots in one round. And so you don't want to have to reload. You can just swap between weapons and get as many as 20 potential shots in one round. And again, you're going to want to have one or preferably two officers with finest hour that you can stack to one turn kill. So that's how you're going to want to optimize your snipers. Now, tip number 3 has to do with mechanics. And some people have missed this because you'll notice that there is no clear area where the game tells you your crit chance. But the mathematics are very interesting about crit chance because if you mouse over ballistic skills, you will notice that your hit chance is a base 30 plus your ballistic skill. So here I have 60 ballistic skill plus 30, that's 90%. But you technically cap at 95%, and then anything above that overflows into crit chance. So if let's say you have 70 ballistic skill plus 30, that's not 100% to hit. You cap out at 95%, and it gives you an extra 5% chance to crit. So you're going to want, through various buffs, to really increase your ballistic skill as high as you can. That's a much easier way to up your crit chance than just finding items of plus crit chance on them. So you combine those items you can get for crit chance with just as much ballistic skill as you can, and it's very easy to be critting on every single shot. Obviously, for your snipers, this is important, but for any character where you can stack ballistic skills as high as you can, this is going to be key. So don't forget about the overflow of hit into crit. All right, the next tip has to do with optimizing your gameplay through talent choices that will support the skills you specialize in with each character. So naturally, certain characters are going to lean towards having really high scores in specific skills. You're going to notice in my situation here, I have Cassia. She is my persuasion specialist. So I've done everything to buff up her persuasion so I don't miss any of the checks. But there are two talents that are going to be key if you designate a character your persuasion specialist, and you'll have somebody else that will be your athletics specialist. Somebody will be a lore warp specialist, and so forth. And that's making sure that you pick up both base skill, for example, in this case, base skill persuasion, but most importantly, you need to get the advanced skill. So not only is this because it gives you, in this case, plus 13 persuasion, but the most important thing here is you'll notice is the character can also reroll failed skill tests, plus 1 attempt for each test. And this happens behind the scenes, so you may not notice it, but it can be the difference between passing or failing a skill check. And if it's a story check, this is especially important because sometimes you'll have multiple checks during conversations, etc., where you need to make a variety of checks. And last thing you want to do is fail one of those. Sure, you could save scum, but it's a big pain in the butt. So make sure that every single character, if you're using them to specialize in any given skill, don't forget to spend those 2 talent points and get the advanced skill, whatever that skill is, so you can get the extra rerolls. Trust me, you'll thank me later. All right, next couple of tips are going to have to do with traversing the main map. So the first tip that took me way too long to figure out is that even though you have these main ley lines, these main travel lines that you're going to be utilizing, you can technically make your own. So you can actually get a path from anywhere to anywhere for the cost of 3 navigators insight. This does include areas you just cannot seemingly get to otherwise. So for example, if I want to get path from here to Frozen Prince, can go ahead and chart it for 3. just like that. Now you can spend other points to make it easier to travel. So technically, for a total of 6 points, navigator points, you can open a line and then make it completely safe. And again, one little tip of this is you can make it so you can travel directly between your colonies. So maybe you'll have one from Janus and you can literally have it go straight to Kievagama, etc. for really easy travels. You can make kind of like a super highway of travels. So that is tip number 1 for these. Now, tip number 2 is knowing how to intelligently utilize different ley lines. The first one of these tips has to do with farming reputation and EXP. And this may surprise you, but it has everything to do with traveling red lines. So if you were to travel this red line, you're pretty much guaranteed to get into a battle encounter. They are not very difficult in general. If you have a sniper, you could basically clear them out normally in 1 round or so. And the idea here is those battles are going to give you a decent amount of EXP and also going to pick up a lot of equipment. And those equipments you can turn in to your reputation vendors to get the reputation up. Now, the next tip has to do with gaining navigator's insight. And so, with my previous tip, I told you I can travel anywhere, create any kind of shortcuts, but it does cost a base 3 navigator's insight. And you will probably say, hey, Leroy, I'm always starving navigator insight, which is a very common problem. Well, the way that you can get this back is you can actually farm yellow, not orange, but yellow ley lines, which are generally pretty low risk. But if you go ahead and create a kind of a pathway like this that's all yellow, you can, or even you can go back and forth between 2 spots, you can farm these. And more often than not, what's going to happen is nothing bad will happen. But from time to time, you're going to get an event that basically says, and I forget the specific wording, but says, oh, there's, you could get really close to some form of crystals. I forget the specific name, but there's a skill check involved. And if you're able to, with your ship, get close, all of a sudden your navigator, the story says something along the lines of, oh, you've gotten really close to the warp and your navigator kind of picked up some knowledge. And I believe you get between 6 and 8 navigators insight from that. It can take a little bit to proc it. It's also the best way to get some navigators insight if you messed up and ran out of them, and if you've basically run out of ways to traverse new pathways. So in case you get in trouble, you can farm it that way as well. It's the most reliable way to get navigators insight. All right, next tip, guys, has to do with colony development. And what I highly recommend is that before you go and commit down particular path of colony projects, whenever you have options to review, make sure you review all the options, because you're going to want to plan in advance projects because of prerequisites. This game, when it comes to colony development, has a lot of mutually exclusive options. And later on, you're going to have options that will require previous projects. So, for example, here in minor spoilers alert, for Test of Willis, notice it says here, one of the following projects has to be completed. And your option is Envirodome or Ergonomics. And if you don't have those, or for example, if you create a situation where you get neither of them, which can happen in certain setups, well, you can make it that you can never get this project, and because you cannot reset colonies, this could be a big project for you. And then you'll notice moving forward, this also blocks, this specific option makes it so you can't get blood sports or killing fields. So as much as you can, take a little extra time, read through all the colony projects as best you can, and plan out. for those later projects, make sure you make choices that get you all the prerequisites in order to get those high-end projects that will give you all the unique abilities, just like this one here. Now, do note in a later video, I'm going to be basically showing you all the colony projects that you can get at Act 4. So do look forward to that, because I know these kind of tend to unlock as you progress through the acts, and you may not be able to necessarily see all of them right away. So I'll get a video for you that as well. All right, next tip, guys, has to do with scouting out your reputation rewards in advance. Now, reputation merchant vendors will get more and more options unlocked as you go between Act 1 and Act 4. I will be doing a video that will show you all of the options in Act 4, but you definitely want to, as best as you can, figure out which ones you want to commit energy and time to for two reasons. Number one, it takes a lot of reputation to max out all of them. In theory, you could, but take a very, very long time, but you're going to most likely want to pick just a couple options, though you can, again, look at them and scroll down, especially towards the bottom. See what kind of items you're the most interested in, so you can choose which ones you're going to put your reputation kind of items towards. But also, you're going to want to check your colonies, and there's going to be certain colony projects that require reputations. And this is a big deal because some of them require a lot of reputation. You'll notice here in exploration, I have 56,000 reputation, which is a lot, but yet I needed that. There were certain colony projects that required 55,000+ reputation just to unlock. So you're going to want to plan in advance which pathways you're going to commit to early on when it comes to reputations. Combo that with your colony projects, because you may like some of the rewards from the colonies, in order to pick which ones you're going to want to go down. Imperial Navy's got its own way of leveling up as well, so this is a little different. But for the most part, for normal reputations where you can just dump any of the normal items into to level them up. All right, next tip I want to give you guys is telling you guys the absolute best heroic powers in the game that you're going to want to utilize, because you're always going to have more heroic powers than you know what to do with. And even though you can only utilize them once per combat, you're still going to want to min-max your usage. And so number one, by a long shot, is going to be Finest Hour. And this is going to be provided to you by the officers. And the reason the Finest Hour is amazing is you give other characters an extra turn where they get full AP and MP. And most importantly, during this extra turn, there are no attack limits. And then you're going to want to take the upgrade that during the extra turn, any kill made by the target restores 1 AP and 1 MP up to 9 times. This is important because it allows you, with a sniper, for example, to get well over 10 shots and kills per round. So you can get up to 9 of this, plus however many APs you can stack through different abilities and talents and features. So it's not unheard of to get 14, 15, 16, maybe 17 or more attacks in one round from range and just wipe out a whole battle. Now, honorable mention in number 2 is Daring Breach, which is pretty much similar to the previous ability, except it's only for warriors and they use it on themselves and they get basically the equivalent of an extra turn. They refresh the AP, MP, they can run around and they have no limits on the amount of melee attacks. So they can run around and melee attack and kill multiple enemies. Again, it's not as powerful as Finest Hour because it's not from ranged. And again, snipers have higher damage potential if you build them correctly than warriors. And obviously you can't get around all over the map everywhere, but you can still get multiple kills, or you can really hit the same enemy 4, 5, maybe 6 times if it's a tough enemy with a powerful melee attack. And so again, pure damage, pure productivity per heroic action. This is your second best one. All right, guys, final tip, and this is a big one. And then something that you will thank me for later on. You may already be doing this, but just in case you don't, you want to make sure you have one decked out offensive casting psyker. And you want them to be unsanctioned psychers in particular, preferably. So if you can keep her alive and on your team, Adira is phenomenal. You want to pump her willpower as much as possible. And what you're going to want to do is you want to make sure you have one really good single target damage attack. Psychic Shriek is perfect for this. Now, baseline, it doesn't seem that powerful. But I will tell you this. If you use somebody like Cassia, and specifically Cassia, she has an ability that will increase your toughness and willpower. And also if you use the Officer and Grand Strategist buffs, I've been able to get her willpower in a battle in Act 4 to well over 300. I believe it's like I've gotten it up to like 350. And what this does is with an ability like Psychic Shriek, which most importantly bypasses armor and damage reduction, it is going to allow you to single damage mega tough monsters that have really, really high defense normally. I've been able to hit, in my particular case, and not even mixed out in Act 4, get almost 1,000 damage per Psychic Shriek. And this is big because there is, without going into spoilers, there is a really annoying encounter in Act 4. If you don't have a Psyker, you are going to struggle forever to destroy the life pool of the super, super tough enemy. But if you have a Psychic with a real powerful single damage ability like this, you can melt them in just a few rounds. Because again, you start hitting him for 300, 500, 700, 900 damage as you buff up her willpower to insane levels. Once you get to that encounter in Act 4, you'll know what I'm talking about. Make sure to come back here, drop a comment, and thank me for that tip because I just made your life a whole lot easier. All right, guys, so there you have it. My second batch of tips for Warhammer Rogue Trader. I will continue making another list if I can find 10 more unique kind of tips that I think I will find helpful for you. I'll make sure to make another video in the future, but for now, this is what we got. Again, if you found this video helpful, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, drop those comments to help me in the algorithm, and of course, it's a perfect opportunity to ask me questions. I will do my best to answer them. As always, thank you for all the support, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.